Hi guys, it's GWR88 speaking, with a very much overdue update on the GWR 2600 project. Now, I know it's been a fair few months since the last one. I think it was back in March when I did the 5th update on this project, and since then there hasn't been any progress made video-wise, but in secret I have been working on it, and these are all the components that I have been doing, bits and bobs on. Mostly it's been painting, so really I didn't think it was worthy of an update just showing that I painted a bit of the tender. But anyway, here it is, and without further ado we will take a closer look at what bits I've been working on. Starting off with the loco itself, and there has been a fair bit of progress regarding a number of components to the model. The first of which, and most noticeable, is of course the livery. Now, I've gone all out and decided to paint the boiler and the other bits and pieces, including the tender, in satin black. As mentioned in the last update, all those months ago, I was having a lot of trouble regarding the paint, and I kept on repainting it, in khaki livery. I was using Tamiya paints, I was using Humbrol paints to see which tones were the best. And the reason why it's taken so long to get around to this update is I've been constantly repainting and stripping, repainting and stripping, repainting and stripping, and it just hasn't seemed to be going on right. So in the end, I just got a bit frustrated and ended up painting it black. And it seems to look all right, because I have seen a number of pictures of models of professional kits of 2600 classes, and they have been in GWR wartime black with GWR on the tender, and it does look quite smart. And I thought, I'll give it a go while we can, and I just decided to paint it black while I had the black paint out, and it doesn't look too bad. But to be honest, I would rather it to be a khaki livery or even green. So I have been working with spray paints recently. There is another project that, or a little video I hope to do on something that I have resprayed. I've resprayed my first item of rolling stock. It's a very, very basic respray, but it sort of proved to myself that I could potentially give it a go on this project. I have been using the primer on there, and the primer has really, really worked and have really helped out. But spray-wise for the actual livery itself, so if I could find a can of khaki spray paint, I may potentially give it a go. But of course, now that it's black, I will need to spray a primer level on there beforehand. But apart from that, the black livery has gone on quite well. Another thing that's changed on the boiler is, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's that little panel I've added to obviously include the motor in, the little sort of armoured air pump or whatever I called it in the last update, but that's on there now. But below that, we have these the wheel arches, where the wheel arches were too on the Truro kit. I've actually got round to filling them. Now on this side you can see I've sanded it down a bit because I wasn't too pleased. Once the black paint went on, I could see there was quite a noticeable ridge there, so I decided to sand it off, and I never got round to putting the next coat on. This is only the first coat of black, by the way. If I turn it over on the other side, that one looks a lot better. But it took an absolute age to try and smooth it to a sort of a spherical the drum shape of the boiler. And you can see with the black paint there is a few little tiny imperfections, but it looks a lot better in the flesh than it does on the camera. The camera does make it look a lot worse than what it is. But yeah, so I managed to get around to filling that in, which took a bit of time. But nonetheless, it's done now, and it certainly looks a lot better than it did when it had those huge gaping holes for the wheel arches for Truro there. Then we come on to the running plate, and this is where a lot of work has happened. With the boiler on top of the frame, I noticed it looked a bit bare on the underside of the boiler, and looking at pictures of the 2600, there is some noticeable features around there, so I thought I would have a go at my interpretation. As mentioned, this project's no way 100% accurate to the class, so recreated some details there. And I decided to go for some inner linkage, some inner motion gear. Obviously static, it's not going to do anything, but nonetheless it makes the locomotive look a bit more realistic. So obviously these are inside cylinder locomotives, so I had a go at sort of putting some linkage in there. And I used a few bits off the Truro kit, sort of to create a few little features. Obviously I used the outside rods, which are of course useless to this project. One of the cranks there to sort of recreate an oiling sort of point for the loco. And again, it's all very rough, but when the boiler's on there, it really does make it look a lot more detailed in there. Makes it look a lot more sort of realistic. Believe it or not, those two side pieces, I was having so much trouble cutting side pieces that sort of which you use to sort of cover the inner motion on the real locomotive. And I actually used a bit of old rail, a 00 scale rail, which I just cut off and was to the right length, and it works perfectly. And not only that, it gives a bit of shape to the sort of the side pieces, like the real, what I've seen from pictures of the real locomotive. And also, it gives the frame a bit of weight, which is good, which will of course add for the overall traction. Because at the moment, the motor, there's quite a bit of weight in the boiler, which is good. But the motor sits here, and apart from that, there's no proper weight on the 09 chassis. So those little metal rails will come in handy with that. One major development, and something that I've been putting off for a long time while doing this project, is of course creating the cab sides. It was pretty obvious from the start that I was going to have to create my own cab sides due to the Truro cab sides being too short and also not the correct sort of width for the 2600 project. So what I did is I got some plasticard and I bit the bullet and finally actually started drawing up or templating around the one supplied with the kit, and then modifying it to create what we see here. Now the Truro one supplied with the Truro kit, as mentioned, it was too short. It come up to about where that line's to there in the paint. This is because Truro has a stepped running plate to include the larger drive wheels, and also it was very rectangular, so it would have gone straight down here, which meant it would have been too short for the running plate on the 2600, and also the motor would be a bit more exposed. So I templated the top half of the design. I basically put it on a piece of plasticard and drew around it with a pen, so I could keep this sort of beautiful curve here, and also get this length on the roof right, so that means the roof supplied with the Truro kit fits on there perfectly. Now, what I did do though is I modified where it comes down. Instead of dropping straight down, I extended the curve around, so I increased the length of the side of the cab side, which is perfect for what I needed. And then what I also did is, once I cut it out, I sliced the handrail off the one supplied with the kit and glued it on there. And as you can see, it hasn't turned out pretty too bad. I also got a little tiny thin bit of plasticard and created the handrail on the top there. And all in all, it doesn't look too bad, and I'm sort of pleased that I finally got around to doing it, because I was really worried about getting this curve right. And of course, it's all one thing creating one cab side, but of course you do need two cab sides. And I don't think I did too bad in creating that curve on both sides. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. So yeah, that's the cab sides complete, and next thing to do with them is of course to glue them with the front there. I do need to put like a little slip to raise the height of that side there, purely because this side will be hidden behind the sort of the box that I've included on the side, the firebox there. But yeah, once that's all glued together, and after painting of course, it will then be ready to assemble onto the main running plate. This neatly brings us on to the tender, and this is where, as mentioned, I've been doing most of the work, which of course has been painting. These tender sides, I reckon, have been about 5 different shades of khaki, and now are black. And I've got the final layer of black on there. The room is very dark, and the light behind me is reflecting in it. It is a lot more satin in the flesh, but as you can see, I've painted the frames first, so they came out really nice satin, and then I had to go at painting the body. The body has gone, I must admit, slightly shinier than the underframes, but then again, it does look like it's been polished, as these real locomotives would have been. Obviously, I don't suppose it would be good for a War Department livery, so I might matte varnish it at the end. But in preservation, like I've been doing quite a lot of preserved era running on the layout at the moment, I think it will fit in quite well. Of course, as mentioned, I might change the livery to a khaki livery again, but for now it looks all right. So if I were to do that, I would mask off the underframes and leave the body exposed, and give it a spray of primer, and then a spray of the livery of choice. But yes, that's where most of the work has been happening on the model. It's been really sort of trying to get this paint right, and I didn't think it'd be worthy of doing an update until I had done some other things like the cab sides, the underframe detail, and of course the filling in on the boiler. But apart from that, it's been a lot of painting, and there's still a bit more painting to go, but I think that's about it. So there you have it. That's all for this update. Hopefully the next update will be sooner rather than later, but at the moment, as mentioned, it all depends on what livery I decide to paint the model and when I can paint it. Obviously the black is going on reasonably well. If I were to continue with this, I would have to just continue painting the boiler and the cab sides by hand. But as mentioned, I am very tempted on priming the body all over again, including the tender, and repainting it, maybe trying my hand at spraying it in a khaki colour if I can find it, or even green, because I'm not sure if the black will do it justice, but it does look quite smart, I must admit. It's I think it would look nice in GWR War Black, or maybe even another sort of black livery this loco could have potentially carried. Of course, as mentioned, this project is not to scale, not 100% accurate, so it doesn't really matter what livery it's painted in, hence the khaki idea. But I would really like to paint it khaki, but the black's going on quite well, so we'll see. But then again, leave your comments or your thoughts in the comments below, I should say. And hopefully the next update will be coming soon, or as soon as possible. So anyway, this has been SDJR88 speaking, and thanks for watching.